Okay, hi everyone. So this is the second video reviewing part two, the literature review. But this is going to be shorter, but once I do the example, it'll be much clearer. So what you're going to do for the literature review is, as I've written here, is that you're going to identify four class readings or sources that are going to help you analyze and frame your object of study. All right. And for this particular assignment, as I mentioned before, no outside sources will be counted for this assignment. And if I do see an outside source, that source is not going to receive credit, which unfortunately is going to impact the overall score for the essay. All right. So then basically what you're going to do when you begin writing out the literature review is the first paragraph is going to identify what the four sources are. And as I mentioned in class, the first time you ever mention an author, you write their name out completely, first name, last name, and if they have a co-author, you definitely make sure that you include the co-author. Unless there's more, if there are more than two co-authors, what you would do is you would write the name of the first author and then comma and then write et space al period, comma, and then the year of publication. And what the et al means is just a Greek phrase that means everyone else involved, right? Indicating to the reader that there's actually more than two authors. But like if there's two authors like Robin Cohen and Paul Kennedy, then you would write both names out. I mean, you would write them out completely, right? And then of course including the year of publication, and then if you mention them again, then you would just write Cohen and Kennedy and then the year of publication. Okay, so that's how you introduce a writer. Okay, but in the paragraph you're going to introduce the name, your publication, and then you could also use the title of the article or the title of the chapter, but when you do use the title of the article or the chapter, you put that in quotation marks. But if you also include the source, right, like the actual book, then you have to put that in either italics or underlined, all right, to indicate that it's a book. Now, if it's a journal, like the journal, the American Sociological Association, then you would include that as well, but you would put that under uh, italicized or underlined as well. But just to be clear, sometimes when I see that, and especially when the title is used, sometimes students will use like the title of the chapter as well as the book or the journal to try to occupy more space. Right now, if that's what you do, like in prior classes, you should try to break away from that bad habit of writing. You're at a level where you shouldn't be doing those things as a first year university student. Right now, if you're transferring, it'd be slightly different because all of this is brand new to you. And I think I shared with you in class that when I transferred from COC to UCSB and I took a class in racism and American history, this is the type of work that we had to do, and this is coming out of junior college. We had to read a book a week, right? And the average page of the book was maybe about like 250 to 300 pages or so. And then we had to read that book for the week, and then the Sunday or the night before we had our class, we had to write a 6-page, one single space summary and critique of the book, and we had to do 9 of those because we're on the quarter system. And then the final paper for that class was that we had to write between 20 to 25 pages critiquing all the books while interjecting our own moral code and ethics in critiquing the books. So that was my first experience writing a paper like that. And then when I went to the professor and explained like my background and all that, like transferring, he basically looked at me and said, "Why is that my problem?" And that there are plenty of resources on campus for me to be able to accomplish that particular assignment, especially the 20 to 25 page paper at the end of the semester. Yeah, I was distraught. I was in crisis, but then, I had to sort of recompose myself and figure out how to do this for myself. All right. And that's what I did, where I eventually, and I'm not trying to brag or anything, once I got my act together, I was pretty much on the dean's list for the 3 years that I was at UCSB. Right. Because I had to work through the fear and anxiety to be able to become an effective student and try to write the best as I can. All right. But writing is like a lifelong process. Okay. But anyway, so getting back to this. So then once you identify your four sources, you also want to sort of say something explaining how they're going to help you frame your topic. All right. And then you just sort of write a regular body paragraphs in the introduction, in the lit review, and that the literature review is going to be the longest part of the paper. So then the lit review should be at the very minimum at least 2 pages, up to about 3 pages or so. All right. So then when you include the introduction, the questions, and the outcome, then you'll see that that's going to get you to the 4 to 5 pages. All right. So, like I said, just give me time to show you how to do this type of writing and this type of organizing your ideas as a sociology student. All right. And also to help you prepare for graduate school. Okay. So, I'm going to stop it here and then I'm going to continue with the research questions.